Hello, I'm Detective Rex, and you're listening to the most jaw-dropping family revenge stories that'll make your tail stop wagging. Today's case is one of those that proves blood isn't always thicker than betrayal. Ready? Then smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let's dive into a story that'll make your heart race and your sense of justice scream for satisfaction. Meet our guest today, Lillian. The microphone is yours.
Thank you so much, Detective Rex. You know what? Sometimes the people who should love you the most become the very ones who try to destroy you. My name is Lillian, and I'm about to tell you the most painful yet empowering story of my life. A story about how my own daughter-in-law tried to erase me from my son's life, how she humiliated me in front of hundreds of people, and how I finally got the revenge that changed everything forever. But here's what'll shock you the most. The truth about Maya, my daughter-in-law, was far more twisted than I ever imagined. Are you ready for this roller coaster? Because what I discovered about her will make your blood boil. Let me take you back to where it all started 3 years ago, when my son Logan brought home the woman who would become my worst nightmare. Logan was my everything. My only child. After his father died when Logan was 12, it was just me and him against the world. I worked 2 jobs to put him through college, sacrificed my own dreams, my own life, everything I had. I watched him grow into this incredible man, kind, ambitious, successful. When he graduated law school, when he got his first job at the prestigious firm, when he bought his first house, I was there for every milestone. I was his biggest cheerleader, his safe harbor, his foundation. And then Maya walked into our lives like a beautiful hurricane, and everything changed. She was stunning. I'll give her that. Perfect smile, perfect hair, perfect everything. Logan was completely smitten from day one. But something about her felt off. Call it mother's intuition. Call it whatever you want, but there was this coldness behind her eyes that made my skin crawl. The way she looked at me when Logan wasn't watching. The subtle comments that cut like knives wrapped in silk. The way she would monopolize every conversation, every moment with my son. But Logan couldn't see it. Love is blind, they say, and my son was completely, utterly blind. The wedding planning was my first real taste of what Maya was capable of. She excluded me from everything. Every decision, every meeting, every moment that should have been about family coming together. When I tried to offer suggestions, she'd smile that fake smile and say, "Oh, Lillian, that's so sweet, but Logan and I have it handled." When I asked about traditions, about including something from Logan's father's memory, she'd brush me off with, "We're creating our own traditions now." It was like she was systematically erasing me from my son's life, one small cut at a time. The guest list? She invited distant acquaintances but somehow forgot to include my closest friends. The rehearsal dinner? Held at a restaurant where I was allergic to literally everything on the menu. And Logan? He just went along with whatever his precious Maya wanted. But the wedding day, that's when I should have known just how far she was willing to go. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll admit that. My son looked handsome in his tuxedo, and Maya was radiant in her designer gown. But throughout the entire day, I felt like a ghost at my own son's wedding. Maya had positioned me at the very back during photos, barely visible in the shots. During the reception, I was seated at a table with strangers while Maya's college roommates got the prime spots near the head table. When it came time for the traditional mother-son dance, Maya suddenly announced they were skipping all the old-fashioned stuff and went straight to their couples dance. I sat there watching my son dance with his wife, feeling more alone than I had since his father died. But what happened during the speeches, that was just the beginning of my humiliation. Maya gave this long, tearful thank you to everyone. Her parents, her siblings, her college friends, her coworkers, even the wedding planner. She thanked everyone except me. Not one word of acknowledgement for the woman who raised the man she claimed to love. Logan just smiled and nodded, completely oblivious to the knife she'd just twisted in my heart. But here's where Maya made her first major mistake. She underestimated me. She thought I was just some weak, grieving widow who would fade into the background. She had no idea what I was capable of when pushed too far. The months after the wedding were torture. Logan's calls became less frequent. Family dinners turned into rushed visits, where Maya would check her phone constantly and make excuses to leave early. Holiday invitations came with subtle conditions that made it clear I wasn't really welcome. Maya was isolating my son, and she was doing it so skillfully that he couldn't even see it happening. But I started paying attention, really paying attention, and what I discovered about my perfect daughter-in-law would shock even the most cynical person. Did you know Maya had been married before? Oh yes. There was a whole husband she conveniently forgot to mention. A husband who died under very mysterious circumstances just months before she met my son. A life insurance payout that funded her luxurious lifestyle. But here's the kicker, she was still legally married when she met Logan. Her divorce wasn't finalized until after they'd been dating for 6 months. Which means my son was technically the other man, and he had no clue. But that wasn't even the worst of it. You see, I started doing some digging. Private investigators are expensive, but some things are worth the cost. And what we uncovered about Maya's past will make your jaw drop. If you're enjoying this story of justice and revenge, please hit that like button and subscribe, because the plot twist coming next will blow your mind. The investigators' report landed on my kitchen table on a rainy Tuesday morning, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees as I read it. Maya wasn't just a liar and a manipulator, she was a predator. This woman had a pattern, a sick, calculated pattern of targeting successful men, isolating them from their families. And then, well, let's just say her first husband's accidental fall down the stairs happened right after he'd updated his will to leave everything to her. The police had investigated, but couldn't prove anything. But there were other men too. A wealthy businessman in Chicago who suffered a heart attack at 35. A tech entrepreneur in San Francisco who died in a random mugging gone wrong. All of them young, successful, isolated from their families, and all of them had recently changed their life insurance beneficiaries to Maya. She wasn't just stealing my son's heart, she was planning to steal his life. I sat in my kitchen for hours, staring at those photographs, those documents, those police reports. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the papers. This monster, this beautiful, charming monster was sleeping next to my son every night. She was planning his funeral while cooking his breakfast. She was practicing her widow tears while lying about loving him. And Logan, my sweet trusting Logan, had no idea he was living with a black widow spider. I knew I had to act, but I also knew no one would believe me. Maya had spent 2 years painting me as the jealous, overbearing mother-in-law. She'd isolated Logan so effectively that if I came forward with this information, he'd probably think I'd lost my mind. I needed proof. I needed undeniable, irrefutable proof that would expose Maya for what she really was. And then fate handed me the perfect opportunity on a silver platter. Logan's law firm was hosting their annual partners' dinner, a prestigious event where they announced promotions and celebrated achievements. Logan had been working toward making partner for years, and this was finally his moment. Maya, of course, had been bragging to anyone who would listen about how they were practically guaranteed a spot at the head table, how Logan was definitely getting promoted, how their future was so bright. She'd even bought a new designer dress for the occasion, spent hundreds at the salon, made sure she looked absolutely perfect for her moment in the spotlight. But here's what Maya didn't know. I had connections at Logan's firm. You see, when you spend your whole life networking, building relationships, and helping your son's career from behind the scenes, you make friends in important places. And one of those friends had some very interesting information about the firm's new background check policy. Apparently, after a recent scandal involving a partner's spouse with a criminal record, the firm had implemented mandatory background checks for all spouses and immediate family members of partners. Logan had submitted Maya's information weeks ago, completely confident there wouldn't be any issues. After all, his wife was perfect, right? But the background check company I'd hired to investigate Maya, they were the same company the law firm used. And let's just say they were very thorough. Very, very thorough. The night before the partners' dinner, I got a call from my friend at the firm. Maya's background check had come back, and it was explosive. Not only had they discovered her previous marriage and the suspicious death, but they'd also found financial irregularities, identity theft charges that had been sealed, and connections to several other mysterious deaths across 3 states. Logan's promotion wasn't just in jeopardy, his entire career was about to implode. But I didn't tell Logan. Not yet, because Maya had taught me something valuable about patience, about timing, about the sweet satisfaction of letting someone destroy themselves. I wanted her to feel the same humiliation she'd put me through. I wanted her to experience the public embarrassment, the shocked faces, the complete and utter destruction of her carefully crafted image. So I waited. I watched her get ready that evening, so confident, so smug, so sure that she was about to be crowned the queen of Logan's professional world. She even had the audacity to comment about how nice it would be when I was too old to attend these types of events. How soon they'd be able to move somewhere far away from all the local drama. She had no idea that in a few hours she'd be the one they'd never want to see again. The partners' dinner was held at the city's most exclusive country club, the kind of place where deals worth millions were made over handshakes, and where reputations were built or destroyed with a single conversation. Maya floated into that ballroom like she owned the place, her arm linked through Logan's, that perfect smile plastered across her face. She worked the room like a politician, charming the partners' wives, complimenting their jewelry, their dresses, their achievements. She was playing the perfect supporting wife role to perfection. But I noticed something else too, the way some of the partners were looking at her. There was an undercurrent of tension, whispered conversations that stopped when she approached, glances that followed her across the room. The background check results had clearly been shared, and the firm's leadership was trying to figure out how to handle the situation. During cocktails, Maya positioned herself strategically near the senior partners, making sure she'd be perfectly placed when they made the announcement about Logan's promotion. She even pulled out her phone to take what she called pre-celebration selfies, posting them to social media with captions about how proud she was of her successful husband. The irony was almost too delicious to bear. Here she was, broadcasting her triumph to the world, completely oblivious to the fact that her carefully constructed life was about to crumble like a house of cards. And Logan, poor Logan, was beaming with pride, so excited about his future, so grateful to have such a supportive wife by his side. If only he knew he was holding hands with a murderer. When they called everyone to dinner, I watched Maya practically float to what she assumed would be the head table. But instead, she and Logan were escorted to a table near the back, far from the partners and their families. Maya's smile faltered for just a moment before she regained her composure, probably assuming it was some sort of seating error that would be quickly corrected. But as the evening progressed and no correction came, I could see her confidence beginning to crack. The partners who had been chatty during cocktails were suddenly distant. Conversations grew quiet when she approached. Even the other spouses seemed to be giving her a wide berth. Something was definitely wrong, but Maya couldn't figure out what. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. The senior partner, Mr. Harrison, stood up to make the annual announcements. He talked about the firm's success, their commitment to integrity, their high standards for both their attorneys and their families. And then he said something that made Maya's blood drain from her face. This year we've implemented new policies to ensure that everyone associated with our firm meets our standards of character and honesty. Unfortunately, this has led us to make some difficult decisions. Logan's name wasn't called for promotion. In fact, Logan's name wasn't mentioned at all. But as Mr. Harrison continued speaking, his eyes kept drifting to their table, and Maya knew, somehow, someway, her past had caught up with her. After the dinner, as people were filing out, Mr. Harrison approached our table. His face was grave, professional, but there was also something that looked almost like pity in his eyes. "Logan," he said quietly, "could I have a word with you privately?" Logan looked confused but nodded, standing to follow Mr. Harrison to a quiet corner. Maya tried to follow, but Mr. Harrison held up a hand. "Just Logan, please." I watched from across the room as my son's face went through a range of emotions: confusion, shock, disbelief, and then something that looked like he was going to be sick. Maya kept trying to get closer, to hear what was being said, but other partners and their wives kept intercepting her, making small talk that felt forced and uncomfortable. When Logan returned to the table 20 minutes later, he was pale as a ghost. Maya immediately started chattering, asking what Mr. Harrison wanted, making jokes about how serious he'd looked, trying to maintain her facade of innocence. But Logan just stared at her with this look I'd never seen before. It was like he was seeing her for the first time, really seeing her. "We need to leave," he said quietly. "Now." Maya's protests filled the car ride home, but Logan didn't respond to a single one. He just drove in complete silence, while she alternated between demanding to know what was wrong and trying to convince him that whatever he'd heard, it was probably just a misunderstanding. But Logan had heard everything. About her previous marriage, about the suspicious deaths, about the ongoing investigation that was expanding to include her relationship with him. Mr. Harrison had been kind but firm. Logan's career at the firm was over. They couldn't risk the association, couldn't take the chance that Maya's criminal activities might somehow implicate the firm. Logan was being asked to resign, quietly and immediately, to avoid a public scandal that would destroy not just his career, but the firm's reputation as well. As they pulled into their driveway, Maya was still talking, still trying to spin her web of lies and manipulation. But Logan had finally seen through the beautiful facade to the monster underneath. That night, Logan called me. For the first time in 2 years, he called me without Maya listening in, without her managing the conversation, without her controlling every word. His voice was broken, devastated, but there was also something else there, relief. Like a man who'd been holding his breath underwater and finally broke the surface. "Mom," he said. And just that one word contained so much pain, so much regret, so much love. "I think I've made a terrible mistake." I wanted to say I told you so. I wanted to scream about how I'd tried to warn him, how I'd seen through Maya from day one. But instead, I just said the words every mother dreams of hearing from their child. "Come home, sweetheart, just come home." Logan showed up at my door at 3 in the morning with a suitcase and red eyes that told me he'd been crying for hours. Maya had tried everything: tears, threats, seduction, manipulation, but the evidence was too overwhelming. When confronted with the police reports, the financial records, the testimonies from previous victims' families, even she couldn't spin a story convincing enough to maintain his loyalty. But here's the thing about narcissistic predators like Maya. They don't just go quietly into the night. When their carefully constructed world starts crumbling, they become dangerous. Very, very dangerous. The next morning, Maya launched a full-scale campaign to destroy Logan's reputation, and by extension mine. She called his friends, his colleagues, anyone who would listen, painting herself as the victim of a vicious smear campaign, orchestrated by his jealous mother. She claimed I'd hired people to fabricate evidence, that I was so desperate to break up their marriage, that I'd resorted to criminal tactics. She posted long tearful videos on social media about how she was being persecuted by her mentally unstable mother-in-law. She even tried to get a restraining order against me, claiming I was stalking and harassing her. For a few days, it actually looked like her strategy might work. Some people believed her version of events. After all, she was young, beautiful, and convincing, while I was just the bitter older woman who'd never liked her son's wife. But Maya made one crucial mistake in her desperation to salvage her reputation. She contacted the families of her previous victims, thinking she could convince them to stay quiet, or even to support her story. She had no idea that these families had been waiting years for someone to believe them, for someone to take their suspicions seriously, for someone to finally hold Maya accountable for what she'd done to their loved ones. When they learned that someone had finally gathered enough evidence to expose her, they came forward with information that had been dismissed by police departments across 3 states. Phone records, financial documents, witness testimonies, medical records. Suddenly there was an avalanche of evidence that painted a picture of a serial killer who'd been operating for nearly a decade. The arrest happened on a Thursday morning. I was having coffee on my porch when I saw the police cars pull up to the house Logan and Maya had shared. I watched through my binoculars as they led her away in handcuffs, her perfect hair disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled, her mask of perfection finally slipping to reveal the monster underneath. The local news picked up the story within hours, and by evening it had gone national. Black Widow serial killer arrested, after mother-in-law's investigation uncovers decade of murder. Logan's face was in every news report, but as the victim's son, not as an accomplice. The narrative was clear. A loving mother had saved her son from a calculating killer. But the real vindication came a week later, at what should have been Logan's graduation ceremony from his master's program. You see, even though he'd lost his job at the law firm, Logan had been completing his MBA at night, working toward a future that Maya had been planning to steal from him. The ceremony was small, intimate, and for the first time in years, it was just Logan and me. No Maya to monopolize his attention, no fake smiles or cutting remarks, no one trying to erase me from my son's life. When they called his name, I screamed louder than any football mom at homecoming. When he walked across that stage, I cried tears of joy and relief and justice all mixed together. After the ceremony, Logan took the microphone during the informal reception. His classmates and professors gathered around as he began to speak. "I want to thank everyone who supported me through this program," he said, his voice strong and clear. "But most of all, I want to thank the woman who has supported me through everything, my mother Lillian. Mom, you saved my life in ways I'm only beginning to understand. You never gave up on me, even when I gave up on you. You saw the truth when I was blinded by lies. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. Everything I am, everything I've accomplished, everything I will become, it's because of your love, your strength, your refusal to let anyone destroy our family." The applause was thunderous, but more importantly, the love in my son's eyes was real. As for Maya, she's currently serving life without parole after pleading guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder. The investigation uncovered evidence of at least 5 more suspicious deaths, and several other states are considering additional charges. Her carefully crafted image as the perfect wife has been replaced by mugshots and prison uniforms. Her social media accounts, once filled with glamorous photos and fake inspirational quotes, have been deleted. She's exactly where she belongs, forgotten, powerless, and alone. Logan has rebuilt his life and his career. He's now a prosecutor specializing in domestic violence cases, using his experience to help other victims who might not have a mother willing to fight for them. He's dating again, a lovely woman named Sarah, who treats me not as a threat to be eliminated, but as a future mother-in-law to be cherished. We have dinner every Sunday, just like we used to before Maya tried to poison our relationship. And sometimes, when we're laughing together over dessert, Logan will look at me and say, "Thank you for never giving up on us, Mom. Thank you for saving my life." You know what the most beautiful part of this whole story is? Maya thought she was so smart, so untouchable, so perfectly manipulative. She thought she could erase me from Logan's life and steal everything he had to offer. But she forgot the most important thing about mothers like me. We don't just give birth to our children, we give our lives to them. We don't just love them, we fight for them. And when someone threatens our family, we become forces of nature that no amount of beauty, charm, or manipulation can stop. Maya learned the hard way that you should never underestimate a mother's love or a mother's capacity for justice. The moral of this story is simple: trust your instincts, protect your family, and never ever give up on the people you love. Sometimes the most beautiful faces hide the darkest hearts, and sometimes the people others dismiss as paranoid or jealous are the only ones brave enough to see the truth. Maya is gone from our lives forever, but the bond between Logan and me is stronger than ever. She tried to destroy us, but instead, she made us unbreakable.
What an absolutely incredible story of a mother's love conquering evil itself. Lillian, thank you for sharing this powerful journey of justice and redemption with our listeners. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of the power of never giving up on family, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this story with at least 5 people who need to hear it. Comment below and tell us about a time when your instinct saved someone you love. Stories like Lillian's remind us all that sometimes the most ordinary people are capable of extraordinary acts of heroism. I'm Detective Rex, and until our next case, remember, the truth always finds a way to surface, and justice always finds a way to prevail. Stay curious, stay brave, and keep fighting for what's right.